morning, good afternoon, good evening. You're listening to the Thai Expat Daily Show. I'm your host, Kieran Mack. Don't forget to please like this video and subscribe to the channel or the podcast. Now let's just jump into today's top stories. Phuket reopening sees thousands apply to visit. Almost 8,000 foreign tourists have applied for a certificate of entry through Thai embassies and consulates around the world since the Phuket Tourism Sandbox, a pilot phase of Thailand's ambitious tourism reopening plan, kicked off last Thursday on the resort island. Chachai Virashakul, Director General of Department of Consular Affairs, said many foreign tourists were taking a keen interest in the pilot. According to Mr. Chachai, since the sandbox began, 7,890 foreign tourists had registered for a certificate of entry, and so far 6,119 had been granted vaccination certification, with 2,802 accepted for the certificate. Mr. Chachai went on to say that the Foreign Ministry had issued the Phuket COE to 446 tourists arriving at Phuket International Airport on Saturday, 462 tourists arriving yesterday, and 127 due to land today. He said that 11 flights had touched down on Saturday, 2 chartered flights and 9 commercial arrivals. Americans had made up the bulk of the bookings, followed by Germans, French, British and Danish tourists respectively. To expedite screening at the airport, Mr. Chachai said his ministry had deployed extra staff to assist. The government forecasts 100,000 foreign tourists will visit Phuket during the third quarter of this year from July to September, generating revenue of about 8.9 billion baht. Meanwhile, the Phuket 19 COVID Information Centre announced on its Facebook page that those who travelled via Thai Smile Airways flight WE201 from Suvarnabhumi International Airport in Bangkok to Phuket at 7:40 a.m. last Thursday should seek urgent COVID-19 tests, as one of the passengers had tested positive since landing. Local authorities in Phuket are also ramping up efforts to tackle the island's notoriously overpriced taxi fares after an early arrival complained about being ripped off. The tourist posted her complaint on the Phuket Tourist Facebook page, saying her hotel had tried to charge her 900 baht for transport from the airport to Patong Beach. She said she was familiar with the route from past visits and under no illusions that this was an exorbitant fare. The return of shady practices so soon after the reopening has since become national news and prompted Nakorn Runja, Phuket Professional Tourist Guide Vice President, to post a warning on his personal Facebook page. He said tourism-related business owners must not fall back on their old ways, as the island is now under the microscope and things have changed for everyone in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic. They, the tourists, are the stars who will advertise tourism to Phuket for free. Let's not let ourselves down with the same bad habits, he posted. So just a couple of things in that article today from the Bangkok Post. Now, 8,000 foreign tourists have applied. I think the projection of 100,000 for the next 3 months is a bit high. I mean, if you're basing on the figures that you've seen just there from them, I think it's looking a bit high for 100,000. I think if they manage to pull in 50,000 in those 3 months, and please consider that we are now heading into the monsoon period here in Thailand, so it's going to be a tough ask to get that many people here, because I mean, when you're today, you look outside, it's been raining since 3 a.m. yesterday morning, so it's pretty much has rained 12 hours now and hasn't stopped. So these are things that draw people to Thailand. That's why numbers are always a lot higher in high season, and mainly because of the weather. The shady taxi practices are back again. Now, I've done a little bit of a price comparison. So a hotel, and not even just a hotel, but let's say if you go to the airport and you see one of these guys outside who's not a metered taxi, they'll charge you about 900 baht to go to Patong. Now, it's about, about $25-30 nearly, whatever around that. I mean, it's pretty steep, considering that if you get the meter taxi, it's about half the price. So I'd love to know who's setting these prices. I mean, obviously they are, but I mean, it looks like that the authorities seem to think the prices are okay. I mean, a metered taxi has to follow, in my opinion, a lot more different regulations than a guy who's got a car and a green plate on it. So it makes you wonder why they're not making more money than the guy who doesn't have to follow as many regulations. Look, the bottom line is if you want to go from the airport to anywhere in Phuket, the best and cheapest method if you're taking a taxi is to take a meter taxi, and make sure they turn the meter on, by the way. It's roughly, I think, 100 baht because you're leaving from the airport. I think it's 7 or 8 baht per kilometer after that. So, I mean, it works out not to be too expensive. But anyway, everybody, there's not that many transportation solutions from the airport because there's no real train connectivity. The bus, well, it doesn't really go. And actually right now the problem is that tourists coming on the Phuket Sandbox model cannot use the public bus. You must use a SHA plus approved transportation operator. So you have to take the taxi or the small minibus. So you're kind of a little bit stuck in that way. So you can't look for something alternative and cheaper because you're meant to go straight to your hotel without stopping as you're waiting for the results for your COVID test that you just had. But anyway, I'd love to know what experiences have people had who've come to Thailand in relation to taxi prices? Do you find them expensive? Now, we're talking about Phuket because there is a big difference between Phuket and Bangkok. In Bangkok, I find the taxi fares reasonable. If they turn on the meter, taxi fares are completely reasonable there. But I wonder what people think in relation to the people who've come to Phuket or have gone to other parts. What do you think about taxi fares here? Do you think they're too expensive? Do you think they're okay? Love to know your thoughts. If you could leave them down in the comment section, and we can chat down there about it later. Samui Plus program for inoculated tourists should begin on July 15th. The Tourism Authority of Thailand has revealed that the Samui Plus program for inoculated tourists should open for certificate of entry application this week, as Surat Thani is slated to open 3 islands on July 15th. Tat Governor Yuttasak Supasorn said today, July 6th, the approval process will not be delayed, like in the Phuket scheme, because the Royal Gazette published approvals for other areas' reopening plans last week. The program just needs approval from the subcommittee of the Centre for COVID Situation Administration this week for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to start the COE registration process for the Samui Plus scheme. Mr. Yuttasak said the number of tourists expected to arrive is estimated at 1,000 in the first 30 days, generating at least 100 million for the provincial economy. It has predicted fewer visitors than Phuket because this model comes with more restrictions, and the island will attract a specific group of travellers who are already fans of Koh Samui, such as tourists seeking health and wellness experiences or those wanting to learn to dive. Surat Thani Governor Vishwat Jintu, along with related provincial agencies, announced the preparation of the 3 islands to reopen for foreign tourists on July 15th under the Samui Plus model project, after more than 70% of the overall population of all islands have been vaccinated according to the requirements of the Department of Disease Control. All tourism and hospitality agencies are ready to welcome all arrivals at Samui Airport and at all ports. Similar to the Phuket Sandbox, all health screening will be conducted to inspect if the tourists have been vaccinated and have met all qualifications, according to the requirements issued by Public Health Ministry. All of the procedures, from entering the accommodation to the departure from the island, have been practically planned. Under the Samui Plus model, which is slightly different than the Sandbox, foreign tourists must stay in Koh Samui during their 1st to 7th day. On the 1st to 3rd day, they are required to stay in the area of their quarantine-style accommodation, but will be allowed to use various amenities at their resort or hotel and are not locked in their rooms. On the 4th to 7th day, they are allowed to travel to designated destinations under a sealed route system, visiting popular tourist attractions and destinations. In the 2nd week of their stay, they can travel freely to Koh Phangan or Koh Tao. A total of 3 RT-PCR tests will be performed 3 times on day 1 of arrival, day 6 to 7, and on day to 12-13, according to the authorities. This will be at the tourist's own expense. So this is the Samui Plus plan that will see people travel internationally to Samui, we think. So the entry requirements are exactly the same as the Phuket Sandbox model. So everything that you have to do before you arrive in Samui are the same rules that you would have done for the Phuket Sandbox model. So you'll need your certificate of entry, which will require you have the insurance, your PCR test before you leave, your vaccination record, you apply online, you do all that stuff that you would have done during the Phuket Sandbox model. And then you will arrive, you will fly to Bangkok, and then you will have a transit flight from Bangkok to Samui, as there are no direct flights to Samui from, I think, anywhere really. And once you get there, then you met at the airport, you'll do a RT-PCR test, you'll be taken to your hotel. So from the first day to the third day, you have to stay in the hotel. You are not allowed out of your hotel. And from day 4 to 7 then, you can go to only certain areas within Samui, what they call the sealed route. So there'll be areas just blocked for tourists only. That's the way I read it, and that's what seems to be the plan. After that, you should be able to have free reign of the island and be able to go to Koh Phangan and Koh Tao if you want to. Now, it does seem a lot more restrictive than the Phuket model, and it's making the Phuket model seem fantastic nearly. I'm not sure they're going to get a huge amount of people taking that up. Now, there was talk, and what I had heard, and now it's not starting on July 15, but there is talk about people flying to Phuket and being allowed to do 7 days in Phuket and then flying to Samui to participate in another 7 there. So that might be something that comes up maybe in August. We don't know. But again, it's all kind of last minute stuff, I think. Now, some people have asked me what's the plan next for Thailand? Where will be opening next? So on the plan, next up is meant to be Krabi and Phang Nga province. If anybody doesn't know, Phang Nga province is the province north of Phuket, and Krabi then is kind of on the opposite, is just across the water from Phuket on the mainland, and Krabi and Phang Nga are connected together as well. So they're meant to be the next ones that are up, and starting August 1. But I just don't see it, and we are on the 7th of July, and I really am not seeing that going to happen. Firstly, only about 30% of Phang Nga province have actually been vaccinated, and under disease control rules, 70% of the entire population of the province must be vaccinated. I just don't see how they're going to get to 70%. The same with Krabi, it's a very low number of people who've been vaccinated. Also, it's a bigger job to open up these areas. These are huge provinces. They're not small little areas. Now, there's talk that they're only going to open up Khao Lak, which is a seaside town in Phang Nga. But again, that's going to be very difficult to regulate and control, letting people in and out. I mean, it doesn't sound like it's a practical idea yet. Now, have heard things that they're maybe going to delay it till September, give themselves a chance to get everybody vaccinated and come up with an actual proper plan for this, because to me it seems very, very up in the air and difficult. Now, there's a couple of challenges they face. Number one, Phang Nga has 2 provincial hospitals, but they do not have the capability for all these RT-PCR tests. And I know that for a fact, that they just don't have the capabilities and the capacities to be performing hundreds and hundreds of tests each day for tourists that would be coming and that need to have their PCR testing done. I mean, it took them 4 hours to give me a rapid antigen test result. So can you just imagine how long it's going to take for maybe 300, 400, 500 PCR tests they'd have to do maybe in one day at the beginning? It doesn't seem like it's a very plausible idea right now. So they're going to have to come up with some ideas on how they're planning to get all this testing done. Because, of course, we all know that right now, under current rules, there's a lot of PCR tests to be done. Now, my hope is that maybe a little more common sense will come to mind, and that they will start to reduce all this COVID testing. I'm hoping that they're using maybe the month of July to see in Phuket that nobody is bringing in the virus, that tourists coming from abroad are not bringing in COVID. And that would be a great thing if they maybe use this as a study to see what has been going on. Now, if that's the case, and that we might see a reduction in the 14 days being stuck in the island to maybe 7 days. Now, this is all good stuff. It's speculative, of course, but I mean, the end goal for the Thai authorities is to reduce as many of the restrictions as possible and to get more and more people coming. I think most people, when they look at the Phuket Sandbox model, they think, yes, it's a little over the top in relation to regulation. It doesn't mean they don't want to come. From the comments that I see every day, a lot of people want to return and come to Thailand for holidays. They miss the place, they want to come back. So that's a very good thing. There is demand out there for trips and holidays to Thailand. But there is not the demand to be subjected to countless PCR tests and being forced to stay here and forced to stay there. There is not a market for that. So I'm hoping in over the next month that we're going to start to see maybe the regulations reduced a little bit. If there is a plan and the plan is real to reopen most of the country by October, then these are the steps that need to be taken along the way. Gradual reduction of the Phuket Sandbox model, expansion into Phang Nga and Krabi, and then by October start to reopen Pattaya, Bangkok, Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai, and all these different places around the country. Let's hope this is the plan, because it's only can be good for the Thai people, start earning some money, starting to get their way of life back, and for people to just feel better about themselves. You know, it's a very depressed place at the moment. When you go around to different holiday areas, everything's boarded up, places are not open. Now, I've also read that the Tourism Authority, or maybe it's the Ministry of Tourism, not sure which one, they're looking to put together a fund of about 500 million baht, and this would be a kind of a soft loan to businesses to help them get up and going again, to be reopened. So there's a lot of businesses that maybe cannot reopen now. They have no money left, and there's just nothing there for them to be able to get their business open. So it looks like they're going to put together a fund to help small businesses, which is about time, by the way, to reopen for when the tourism market starts to get going again. And let's hope that's going to be October or so. So the question goes out to you people. If the restrictions were less right now, say one PCR test on arrival, would you come? Would it be a holiday that you can do? Just one PCR test when you get here, you wait in your room till you get it, and then you have the freedom to roam anywhere you like in Thailand. Would that be something that you would be up for? Let me know down in the comment section below. And finally, your 60-second news report. Prayut in 14 days home quarantine. The Prime Minister of Thailand is currently in home quarantine after it emerged he took a selfie with a COVID-positive man at the recent Phuket Sandbox opening on July 1. Samui Plus chemical fire under control. The explosion, which rocked the city, has now been brought under control this morning at 5 a.m. One firefighter died during the event. Delta variant to take over, warns expert. 52% of cases in Bangkok are now the Delta variant. It is expected to be the dominant strain by the end of this month. Police raid pornography shoot at Pattaya home, 5 people arrested. I think we can all use our imagination there. 1.5 million Pfizer doses donated by the US to go to senior citizens, pregnant women, it has been revealed today. And finally, survey shows most hotels can only cover operation costs for less than 3 months. A recent hotel survey by the Bank of Thailand has shown that most hotel operators have only enough money to last for about 3 months, and hotel occupancy dwindles and hangs around 10% or less. Thanks for tuning in today. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating. We are available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow.